In the dim light of a climate-controlled chamber in Jerusalem, behind thick glass, rests a fragment of ancient parchment. Its edges are brittle, its ink faded, yet the words it carries have outlasted empires. Written more than 2,000 years ago, these lines describe what awaits the human soul after death, not in vague metaphors, but in precise architectural detail. A system so structured, so deliberate, that it challenges everything many have been taught about judgment, mercy, and the nature of the afterlife. This is no later invention, no medieval fantasy. The fragment belongs to the Book of Enoch, a text that once circulated widely among the Jewish communities of the Second Temple period, the very world in which Jesus and his earliest followers lived. Yet for centuries, it has hovered at the edges of accepted scripture, influential but ultimately set aside. Why would a vision of the world to come, preserved in the Dead Sea Scrolls and quoted by early church fathers, become so uncomfortable that entire councils seem to sideline it? To understand, we must travel back to the rugged terrain west of an ancient mountain, as Enoch himself was led by the angel Raphael. There, carved into living rock, lay 4 hollow places, deep, wide, and unnervingly smooth. Not abstract realms of flame or bliss, but physical compartments within the earth, designed to hold the spirits of the dead until the great day of judgment. The text is explicit. These were not final destinations. They were holding chambers, each serving a distinct purpose in a divine accounting that had not yet reached its conclusion. Consider the implications. In the religious imagination of the West, the afterlife often collapses into 2 stark realities: heaven for the saved, hell for the damned. But here, in a text that predates the New Testament by centuries, we find something far more nuanced, a graduated system reflecting the complexity of human life, justice deferred, and debts not fully settled. The discovery of these ideas in the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 forced scholars to reconsider what Jews living at the time of Christ actually believed about death and what follows it. Fragment 4Q206, dated to around 100 BCE, confirms that this vision was no marginal speculation. It was part of the intellectual air breathed by the people of Judea. Enoch describes the first hollow as a place of relative light and refreshment. A bright spring of water bubbles at its center. Here dwell the spirits of the righteous, not necessarily flawless saints, but those who lived ordinary, decent lives. They rest, yet they wait. Their condition is peaceful, but temporary. The final accounting, the ultimate move to something greater, still lies ahead. This alone disrupts simpler narratives. Even the good do not immediately ascend to eternal reward. There is a period of anticipation, of preparation for what is to come. Move to the second hollow, and the atmosphere shifts. Here are the souls of those murdered, those whose blood cries out from the ground like Abel's against Cain. Their voices rise in a continuous sound, not mere wailing, but something akin to rushing water, persistent and unignorable. They are not being tormented for their own sins. Instead, they exist in a state of open petition, their cases still pending before the divine court. Justice has not yet been rendered. The wrong done to them remains unresolved, and so their spirits remain active, pressing their suit until the appointed time. This detail is striking. It suggests that the afterlife is not a place where all scores are instantly settled, but one where certain matters carry forward, demanding acknowledgement. What does it mean for our understanding of divine justice if even the innocent dead must wait for full resolution? The text does not leave the question hanging. Raphael explains that these hollows were created precisely for this sorting, this separation, until the day when all will be judged openly and finally. The third hollow deepens the picture further. Here reside the spirits of sinners who, in life, already experience some measure of consequence for their actions. Their time in this dim space is one of isolation, like scattered grain detached from the harvest. They have paid part of their debt through earthly suffering or loss. The ledger is not fully closed, but neither are they abandoned to endless torment. Their condition feels measured, almost clinical in its detachment. Connection to others, to the living flow of existence, has been severed for now, yet hope of final reckoning remains. It is the fourth hollow that lingers longest in the memory. This is the place for those whose lives actively sustained and enabled greater wickedness in others. Not merely those who sinned in private moments, but those who shielded systems of harm, who protected the powerful in their oppression, who profited from or perpetuated the machinery of injustice. They suffer in heat without visible flame, in permanent darkness. The isolation here feels heavier, the separation more complete. The text frames their condition not as arbitrary punishment, but as the natural extension of choices that insulated evil from accountability. Why 4 distinct spaces? Why this careful differentiation? Enoch's vision presents the afterlife as a vast legal archive, where every soul's file is reviewed according to its unique circumstances. There is no one-size-fits-all damnation. Instead, there is discernment, proportionality, and an emphasis on the relational impact of our actions, how we stood in relation to justice, to the vulnerable, to truth itself. This was mainstream thought in Second Temple Judaism, a period of rich theological ferment where ideas about resurrection, judgment, and intermediate states were actively debated. The Book of Enoch did not emerge in a vacuum. Its influence echoes through early Christian writings. Some scholars see traces of its imagery in passages about the spirits in prison or the fate of the unrighteous. Yet by the 4th century, as church structures formalized, certain texts fell from favor. The Council of Laodicea in 364 CE addressed readings in churches and canonical boundaries. While the precise role it played in sidelining Enoch remains debated among historians, the effect was clear. A text once revered by figures like Tertullian and quoted in the New Testament era gradually moved to the margins in the Western tradition. In Ethiopia, it remained part of the broader canon. Elsewhere, it survived primarily through fragments and echoes. What made this vision threatening? Perhaps its very clarity. A vague, all-encompassing hell can function as a powerful tool for moral exhortation and institutional mediation. But a structured system, where criteria are known, where enabling systemic harm carries particular weight, where even the righteous weight shifts the emphasis back to personal and collective responsibility before God. It removes the need for any human gatekeeper to define the boundaries of salvation. The text suggests that the ultimate judge sees the full architecture of our lives, including the quiet ways we sustain or resist evil. This ancient framework finds unexpected resonance in contemporary research. Dr. Sam Parnia and his colleagues, studying cardiac arrest patients and near-death experiences, have documented reports of heightened awareness and structured perceptions during periods when clinical measures of brain activity suggest minimal function. Many describe states of review, of unresolved matters pressing upon consciousness, of separation according to the emotional and moral weight of one's life. While science does not claim to prove ancient texts, the parallels invite reflection. Could these modern accounts be glimpsing something akin to the holding chambers Enoch described? Not final destinations, but transitional realities where consciousness persists and accounts remain open. The fragments themselves continue to speak across time. Some remain in conservation at institutions like the Israel Museum, their full contents still yielding insights as imaging technology improves. Others sit in collections worldwide, studied by specialists who recognize their value for understanding the religious landscape of Jesus' day. The very fact that these texts survived centuries of copying, translation, and deliberate preservation suggests they touched something profound in those who encountered them. Yet questions persist. Why does this more nuanced vision of the afterlife feel unfamiliar to so many? How did simpler binaries come to dominate certain traditions? And what does it mean if the sins that weigh heaviest are not isolated moral failures, but the active enabling of broader harm, the protection of systems that crush the innocent, the defense of injustice for personal or institutional gain? Enoch's journey does not end with condemnation. It reveals a God who sees every hollow, every spirit, every unfinished case. The righteous rest by living water. The murdered continue their cry for justice. The partially judged await completion. And those who propped up wickedness face the weight of their complicity. All of it points toward a final day when the compartments will open, when every separation will resolve into perfect clarity. This is not a message of despair, but of profound accountability and hope. It suggests that our choices matter in ways that echo beyond the grave, not in cosmic indifference, but in a structured divine economy where justice is patient, thorough, and ultimately complete. The parchment in Jerusalem holds more than history. It holds an invitation to examine how we live now, whom we stand with, and what kind of legacy we are building in the hollow places that await us all. As the light shifts across that ancient fragment, one truth emerges clearly. The afterlife envisioned here is less about eternal reward or punishment handed down arbitrarily, and more about the continuation of moral reality, the full unfolding of lives lived in relation to truth, mercy, and justice. In a world still wrestling with systemic harm and personal integrity, perhaps no question is more urgent than this. In which hollow would our own spirit find its place, and what might we do today to align ourselves with the bright spring rather than the enabling dark? The text leaves the answer, as it always has, to the reader and to the judgment that is yet to come.